All right, everybody, thank you. Welcome to the third panel, second panel today. This panel's focus is called A Generative Renaissance, and it's focused on data-driven modes of authorship. All right, our four panelists today, we have Mark Marino from USC, giving a talk on data dramatization, so bringing data to life through NetProv. Mark is an author and scholar of digital literature, as well as a professor in the writing program at USC. He directs the Humanities and Critical Code Studies Lab at USC, which is a research group dedicated to humanities approaches to the exploration of computer science code. Is your book still coming out on Tuesday?
No, it's March 10th.
Okay, and his new book, his book Critical Code Studies, is available on March 10th through MIT Press. Our second panelist is Ryan Germick, who's walking down the aisle. He's joining us from Google. His talk is called Avenging Clippy. Ryan is an artist, illustrator, and principal designer and creative director at Google, leading the Google Assistant personality team. His goal is to fully realize the creative opportunities of personal and person-like technology to help people live their best lives. Our third panelist is Eun-Soo Kang from Carnegie Mellon University, presenting creative AI and machinic surrogacy at the intersections of art and machine learning. Eun-Soo Kang is an artist, researcher, and educator who explores intersections of art and machine learning, seamlessly integrating new technologies to create interactive audiovisual installations and other forms of artwork. Shlomo Dubnov from UC San Diego is our fourth speaker. His talk is entitled In Fleeting Moments, Recomposing Prokiev with Deep Neural Networks. He's a professor of music and computer science at UCSD, and his research on statistical modeling of musical style led to the development of the field of machine improvisation and initiated new growing area of music information dynamics, using music or information theoretic tools for the modeling of music cognition and computational creativity. So, please join me in welcoming our four panelists, and we'll start with Mark Marino.
Okay, thank you, Robert and Aaron, for organizing this extraordinary conference. So what Robert didn't tell you is that I'm also the provisional provost of the Under Academy College, and that's a non-credit bearing, non-degree granting institution that was founded by Tal and Mehmet. And we have a new job call out for digressor. This is posted on Craigslist. And if any of you are interested in becoming non-paid digressors for the Under Academy, the call is up there. Basically, we need people who have, you need to know everything about nothing and nothing about everything. Top applicants need to be a general specialist and a special generalist. So please do apply and spread the word. So this is we're announcing this position today. This is our first position we've ever advertised on Craigslist before. Yep, they plugged my book. So we also have a working group going on. This is our last week of it. If you're interested in critical code studies, we do cultural studies of computer source code. And one of them that's going on right now has to do with feminist search led by an Art Center grad, Christine Minders, Sarah Siston from USC, and Catherine Griffiths from USC, along with Jana Thompson. And one of the provocations they have is this notion of feminist search, which is largely predicated on an idea of a search database with where people opt in with their data. All right, but today we'll be talking about data dramatization, bringing data to life through NetProv, and particularly focusing on a art project we did collaboratively with a lot of students at several universities called Destination Wedding 2070. So we began with this problem. Climate researchers, or the one that we were working with, they have software models that can give you a projection of certain climate outcomes well into the future. So let's say 50 years into the future, and they can give it to you by location, and they can give you those weather predictions, unlike our contemporary weather predictions for day-to-day weather. They can give it to you to the day, what the weather will be like in a particular location in the globe, around the globe, 50 years in the future to the day. However, most of the ways they have of communicating this data is not particularly compelling. So here are some examples here. And we might have folks in the room that are dealing with data visualization who can come up with many more promising outcomes, but our climatologist, Dargan Frierson at the University of Washington, felt that this was an inadequate way to communicate climate data. So, and here are some more models that, again, perhaps inadequate. This particular graph in the upper right-hand corner is the infamous hockey stick graph from Michael Mann that was later involved in a piece that I look at in the Code Studies book, the Climate Gate debacle, as it's called, which was an instance of publicly misreading source code. But in any case, you can see a lot of these graphs. It's hard to feel the visceral impact of this data, perhaps, just by looking at those graphs. Although, you know, maybe watching An Inconvenient Truth, you got a few more visuals to go along with it. Together with my writing partner, Rob Wittig, who's up at the University of Minnesota in Duluth, we formed a style of writing that we call NetProv, which is online collaborative improv or networked collaborative writing. He likes to call it the voluntary healing of necessary relationships through play, or if you go from just the etymology, a net full of works imagining an unforeseen scenario. So this past semester, back in the fall, we launched together with Samara Haley Steele, who is a PhD candidate at UC Davis working in LARPs, and Dargan Frierson of the University of Washington, we launched Destination Wedding 2070, in which you role play a family member slogging to a far-off corner of the globe so you can bicker with relatives, troubleshoot catastrophes, and vent in your secret diary. Oh, and of course, so you can celebrate the blissful union of the happy couple. So there are lots of, I don't know if you've ever traveled to a destination wedding. They're usually held so that you can exclude certain relatives from the event. But we had a couple of thoughts in mind when we were developing this, and one was that we would choose a date in the future that was far enough out that it might be impossible to sort of shrug off the effects of climate change. But then at the same time, still within the lifespans, hopefully, of the students who are in their 20s or so who are playing the NetProv with us. So just to be a little bit more clear, these students in groups of about 20 or so were given virtual weddings to attend, usually these were generated by a little JavaScript, usually with an added constraint of two different conflicting familial, philosophies. So here we have the wine drinkers and the teetotalers coming together in Key Biscayne, Florida. We had 5 locations. Let's see, we had New Delhi, Mar del Plata, Argentina. We had Key Biscayne, Florida. I'm going to say it wrong. Issaquah, Washington. And then one more that's slipping my mind right now. So we'll find out, remember what it was later. Anyway, here you can see these are also some randomly generated characters for the students to play. They all have relationships to either the one betrothed or the other betrothed. And then, of course, the gender of the betrothed could be male, female, or gender fluid. So here's a little bit from the Delhi wedding. I'll read you a little bit of this one. Again, you were given 8 beats of this event to imagine yourself in the future, and then I guess I really haven't laid out the essential premise that's relevant to this conference, which is, again, rather than thinking about communicating data through some sort of line graph, the idea was to use the wetware of human brain biology, again, thinking back to our last panel, right, the importance of keeping humans in the mix, to imagine yourself in this circumstance and how it would affect the day-to-day interactions of your life as you tried to enjoy this wedding. So you've got 8 beats of a wedding broken down from the moment you arrive to after the wedding, and of course including things like a cold feet moment and a rehearsal dinner and a bachelor X party. But anyway, I'll read you one of these a little briefly. Let's see how this one is. This is one of the first beats. Nighttime is the only time I can breathe in this fortress of hell. Oh, because the New Delhi one was held in a fortress that is now being used as a like a wedding venue and a hall. It's a real one that's been converted. And yet I am, and this is the disturbing first sibling of Reagan, who was one of the people getting married, Nixon Weichsmiegs. And yet I am so drained, I don't even think I can move. When you stand in one place for so long, you become invisible, but you also become all-seeing. I saw when Dad arrived in his rickshaw, showed up at the bar, wheedled free drinks from the bartender. I saw a woman I can only guess was Rory's mother bang through the entrance with so much clatter. Every eye was on her, so fitting, a hot mess, ha ha. Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to tell you that I think our temperature forecast for New Delhi was something ungodly, like, I don't know, 150 degrees or something like that, right? Where the climatologist in his report to us said it would be so hot that it would be fatal to some people in the shade with a fan blowing on them. So again, this is the context. And plus there was likely a monsoon coming at the same time. So then that happens during the course of this wedding as well. I saw Reagan sweep in and out with a bottle of vodka. I saw Jasmine arrive and leave with some random man and give the once-over to every warm-blooded creature in the place, all except me. But perhaps I am cold-blooded. I am like the bead of sweat on the glass. I am like the still, dank air. I am like the leaf insect. I am part of this family, and yet my presence is negligible. I am like ozone, and one day I won't be. So then students took different roles. Here's a vengeful best friend. You could see how the climate stuff sort of creeps into their writing. The power went out at the hotel because of a huge storm that hit. It was raining so hard that the beach was completely flooded. Everybody was ushered over to some creepy tower instead. It was tricky getting over there, but I paid about 5 bellhops to follow me around with umbrellas and hold my train so the dress didn't get wet. Here's Javier del Toro, the vengeful Latin ex-lover of Avery. The next day was the wedding. There was a huge storm that caused a power outage. The strangest thing was that Avery was walking down the aisle with a bathrobe. To make matters worse, the power for the entire city shut off and chaos ensued. And then the flighty aunt of Avery, Cindy Lee. I found a nice man last night that had a large boat. I think he might have been the DJ, or maybe he's the Backstreet Boy cover artist in the hotel lounge. Not entirely sure. He's using it as an escape to the looming tsunami and plans to sail to Australia. A vacation at my favorite spot and escaping doom? How could I not? Not to mention the boat is fancy. Okay, so I want to do a little exercise right now just because we have a few more minutes. I would like to invite you all to the wedding. Well, let's call this wedding the wedding of data and culture. And you're all attending it. This is 50 years in the future. Presumably, San Diego, where we are now, is, I'm going to presume it's underwater. And I want you to turn to the person next to you who's also a guest, or nearby you who's also a guest at this wedding. And let's start with the sentence, I can't believe what happened last night at the reception. If you want to work in climate events, you can. Again, again, this whole zone around us is underwater. And just take a few minutes. I'll give you a timer. Just let's say 3 minutes, just to talk about what happened at the wedding reception, and then we'll rejoin at the very end. So go now and literally talk to the person sitting next to you. Introduce yourself, etc. Okay, guys, I have to end the wedding again because we have to wrap up. I hope you enjoyed at least the human contact with the person sitting next to you, and if the point of this activity was not clear, as has been pointed out to me, let me just say. So again, the goal was to communicate the impact of this weather data, but to use humans to help communicate to one another through imagination with how weather affects us, will affect moment-to-moment aspects of our lives, will affect us emotionally, and to use us to think about predicting our human reaction, again, to let this data sink in maybe in a way it wouldn't otherwise. I'm going to end with one little slide right here from a student who is clearly gunning for an A. I'll just read this one and then we'll be done. Overall, I think I was saved by the hurricane interfering with the wedding. Everyone was too preoccupied worrying about the hurricane affecting the wedding. Nobody got too upset about me crashing it. I'm also glad I was able to make amends with Faye and was given the opportunity to spend time with her again. I don't know if we will ever get back together, but the progress was made between us. As much as I wanted to try and get back with Faye's family business, I figured now was the time to approach her grandfather. He was probably upset enough. I was even there on top of the hurricane. I will most likely cut my losses and find a different career path. I did discover a new hidden talent of mine, constructing makeshift floating devices. I think this is where they get the A, right? I think this trip allowed me to mature as an adult. Wow, a college course that does that, and look at my life in a different perspective. It also, here it is, here's the goal, the learning outcome. It also made me aware of our ever-growing issue of climate change. One more thing I just want to point out, which is our students, our young people, this generation Z, I guess is it called, are acutely and anxiously aware of climate change, much more than perhaps their gray-haired forebears. And so I will say that baked into this exercise is an awful lot of play. And that's meant to add also a little humanity, perhaps, imagination and play as a way to come to terms with perhaps the inevitable in a way that is going to be more communal and maybe have a little bit of healing baked into it. Anyway, thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. I just want to point out one more thing. I've only ever seen this color of paper in the game Monopoly. I don't know, just something to think about.